everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jelsma, and this week, guess who's back?
Guess who's back in the house? Yeah, that's right. It's me, Kim.
Kim the Geek.
Kim the Geek.
I mean, if we have a podcast, it's your Twitter handle anyway. You might as well just be Kim the Geek from now on. You're Kim the Geek on the show.
Okay. I picked Kim the Geek on Twitter because most of the other Kim-related things were taken.
Okay.
But
still,
I am a geek.
It fits
So,
with the format of the show.
Okay, whatever.
You're Kim the Geek. How about that?
All right, I'm Kim the Geek.
You know, I mean, Space Mountain's already taken from me. But,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
but anyway, before we begin the show this week, we got a couple of house cleaning things to
House
talk about.
cleaning time.
Yeah, the first one is the results of the battle for state supremacy.
Yes. And what are the results, Tim?
Well, first, I gotta look around, make sure Luke's not hiding somewhere so he doesn't hit me with a chair.
Pretty sure he isn't, or else he would have probably come out and tried to steal one of my tacos.
Well, he probably would have done that.
We just had some food. We had tacos.
Some good, greasy food with ingredients that used to have a face.
Okay, yeah.
You know.
There was meat in there.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of vegan stuff. But anyway, the battle for state supremacy is over. The first ever battle for state supremacy, it was Michigan versus Oregon. We chose our songs to represent our state, and the votes are in. The winner of the battle for state supremacy, the first ever battle of state supremacy, is the state of Michigan.
Yay! Well, you know, you did have a very good playlist. I'll give you that. I did like your playlist.
Yeah. I do gotta say I really liked. I mean, we've already talked this off air before, but I did like the whole research aspect of the battle for state supremacy.
It was pretty interesting. I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know before.
Yeah, and one thing we've talked about is that, I mean, we're not going to do it like an every week or an every month type of deal, of course, but quarterly, we're going to bring the battle for state supremacy back and go through all 50 states. And,
sure.
You know, that way
we'll just put them all in a hat and each pick a state and go from there.
Yep. That way it'll be a little more, a little bit more of a fair fight, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, whoever gets California is going to be super lucky.
Washington, Texas.
Yeah, there's a lot of
New York,
good states out there.
Florida, I mean, yeah.
But then again, I was surprised to find that some of my favorites that I thought were from Portland were actually born elsewhere.
What I'm surprised you didn't do too was, like, I'd mentioned before that, I believe Nancy Wilson from Heart was born in Oregon.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who were born here, and they're bands that I'm not totally that fond of. I mean, I was going for stuff that I liked rather than trying to win. Whereas I think you were just trying to win.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that was the whole thing. I wanted to win.
But I wanted to share things that I liked.
Well, that's good too.
It's my home state. It's my heart. It's my soul.
Look at what I did with my list. I mean, I'm not going to proclaim to be the biggest Spinners fan in the world, and could it be I'm Falling in Love is probably the only Spinner song before
Nor
and
am
after.
I a fan of the Kingsmen, but I put Louie Louie on my list.
Yeah.
So, I just went with something that I felt was kind of well-rounded and interesting and different. And maybe people liked it, maybe people didn't. Maybe people learned something, maybe people didn't.
Well, yeah.
So, it is what it is. I lost. One movie am I have to being subjected to that I'm going to have to pay for.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, our special guest last week, Aubrey, actually voted for Oregon.
I know, I listened.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I like you, Aubrey, and I've never met you.
Not the best music choices, though. Anyway, what I was thinking is a little different than going to a movie theater.
Oh.
Because I thought about it, since we have a music focus, we could do this, you'd pay. It would be either paying for takeout or taking, one of our favorite things we like to do at home here is every now and then we'll just buy like one of those big family-sized lasagnas, pop it in the oven.
Yep.
And, that's good. And I thought we could do that and watch one of two movies. One could be the movie Head from the Monkees. The movie that I believe I described on the show before as if you've never taken LSD before and you want to experience it without actually taking the drug, you're going to watch the movie Head.
I've taken LSD before. I don't really want to take LSD again. Okay. So what's my other choice?
The other choice is a nice musical, one of my favorite musicals, called Cannibal, the Musical.
Okay, I'd be down for that.
From Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
I'll be down for that.
Okay. And then what we can do afterwards is record a bonus episode, kind of a review, and go from there. But okay. I wanted to do something a little bit different than go to a movie, because especially now, this time of year in January, this is January and February typically the months that Hollywood throws their easy films out. I mean, you're not going to get blockbusters. You're not going to get the deep, heartfelt dramas. It's just cheap films that they know they can make a quick buck off.
They dropped Little Women on Christmas.
But
see, if I went, you'd be going to see Little Women with me.
Well, but films like that released in December are released strategically so they can qualify for the next year for that year's Academy Awards.
I know, but it's a woman. It's a very female-driven movie. I didn't think you would enjoy it very much.
What? So I don't like women? What?
No,
I happen to like women very much. Thank you.
It's a chick flick, but.
Well, I've actually heard some good things about it. So.
Well, I like Saoirse. How do you say her? I know her first name is pronounced Saoirse. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, she's an actress. She's in this movie. I like her. So. Yeah.
And Hermione Granger's in the movie.
Yep.
Paige from the WWE's in the movie.
Really?
No.
The actress who played Paige in
Fighting with My Family. Yeah.
Okay.
She's in it, but that wouldn't be a bad one to see at some point. But yeah, I will. We will watch Cannibal the Musical, and I will gloat over my victory.
Yeah, I know. I'm already getting tired of the gloating.
I had to put the crown away.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of humbleness. Folks that know me know that I can be one of the most humble, soft-spoken guys around. And, one thing I wanted to talk about before we start the show proper was a gift I was able to give Kim for Christmas, And saying this in the most humble sense that I possibly can with no ounce of hyperbole at all, it was the greatest gift ever given in the history of Christmas in human history. Tell folks what it is.
It was a pretty awesome gift. He got me a Princess Leia purse. It's a purse, and it's got this gorgeous portrait of Princess Leia with the buns on the side, and it's got like the Rebel logo in pink, and it's a very, very girly purse. Probably not something I would have picked for myself, but I really, really like it a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I went a little crazy and got some accessories to go in it, because that purse versus my previous purse had all kinds of pockets and places to stash things, and this purse is basically a big open cavern where things would get lost and die.
A big hole.
So I got some zipper pouches and fun things to do, and I ended up upgrading my wallet. I got a R2-D2 wallet to go in there, and a zipper pouch with Princess Leia things, something about reading is a good thing. And anyway, I posted pictures on my Twitter, so you can go look there
at Kim the Geek.
At Kim the Geek, and yeah, it's a pretty awesome gift. I did tear up.
Yeah,
I teared up.
I mean, usually when I give giving gifts in the past for me, especially when you're in a marriage. With a very special quote unquote person, usually when I did give gifts, it would be, oh, this is beautiful. Do you have the receipt? And it's made me hesitant to buy gifts for people overall, and also too, I'm not a big fan of the holidays. Yeah. Overall, I've talked about my wonderful aunt before, but just for me, I'm more of a person that would give a gift as a spur of the moment type of deal, and I also don't like surprises, because Kim got some gifts and I'm like, what is it? And then when I bought her a gift, I was like, I want to show you right now. And she's like, God damn it, no.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, dude, wait. Half the fun of surprises is the surprise, and it's just, I mean, Christmas can be really difficult for a lot of folks, myself included. I tend to, I get stressed out. I pick up on other people's stress, and then it just makes me really stressed. So a lot of times around Christmas, I prefer to just kind of stay home and hide because I don't want to be picking up on everybody else's crap. But, you know, I love giving gifts. I really do. I love giving gifts. I love finding things for people that they'll find useful, that can mean something, but at the same time just makes them happy and is useful is pretty much what I like to go for with gifts. And speaking of which, 2 of the gifts that I got for Tim, he's wearing right now, so I'm pretty pleased about that.
I mean, everything I'm wearing right now, except for my underwear, my Star Wars underwear, that's related to a topic we're talking about today. So I wanted to make sure that if I am going to mention the underwear I'm wearing on my podcast, that it has a point to something we're going to talk about.
Yes, he's wearing Star Wars underwear.
Yeah.
He's that nerdy.
Yeah.
But I'm wearing Star Wars on my shirt. So.
I'm 43. How do I get dates?
Well, I'm 46, so...
But, it's great stuff there. You know, great holiday. We had fun.
We did have a good holiday, and then we both worked on New Year's.
Oh, God. Anyway, speaking of New Year's.
Speaking of New Year's, it's that time when everybody wants to make New Year's resolutions. And my Facebook feed is full of my friends and family talking about dieting for the new year. And I've just kind of noticed a trend when it comes to diets. People are getting like more and more kind of restrictive in the types of diets they're following. It's not just like, well, I'm going to eat better and I'm going to exercise this year and stuff like that. No, it's like, yeah, I'm going to go on this keto diet and I'm going to make my body go into this unnatural state of being and then eat like all this food. And there's no research that shows this is actually good for me. But yeah, I don't...
Gwyneth Paltrow does it.
Yeah, and it's just, I get concerned because, you know, it's disordered eating is what it is. And it's not good to do things like that, really. And I don't think I've seen any friends or family have any success with anything outside of just eating better and exercising. You know, don't eat a lot of fast food. Get outside and walk around. That sort of thing. And I'm just concerned. And I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. I'm like, well, why are more and more people doing this? It seems like I'm just hearing so much more about people, just random people that I know, like at work or friends, family. They're on these more and more like extremely restrictive diets, and I think it comes down to the fact that as a whole, with the way that society and the world and things are, a lot of us feel like we have no control over everything. So people are grabbing control wherever they can find it. And in particular, what you put into your body, you have control over. So they're restricting themselves. And I don't know if it's good or bad or what, but it just kind of doesn't make me feel good. I just feel kind of sad in a way.
It makes me sad too. I mean, I recall a tweet that I actually saw today of a woman talking about how you know, she'd went through bouts of being heavier at times and then thinner at times, but one time her mother went on a diet, and what would happen is they would be out and about in town, and just people would come up and go to the mother and be like, "Oh my God, you lost so much weight," and then turn to her, knowing that that's, you know, her daughter, and be like, "Oh, you can be that skinny one day too." And and then she talked about, you know, afterwards how, you know, constantly hearing that over and over again led to her, you know, getting an eating disorder and whatnot. Now, as a guy, men do suffer through eating disorders. That is a known fact. Men can get them and get them all the time. But just more often than not, women are probably the ones that probably go through that more often, just because of what society puts on women, that you know, that women have to look a certain way, even though, like men, women go through different shapes of their bodies at all different times of the year.
And just in life in general, I mean, our bodies definitely change over time. Our metabolisms change, you know, just hormones change, fluctuations in hormones affect a lot of different things. And then there's also medications can make you gain weight. It's like you start taking a medication, like in my own case, you take a medication to help with your mental health, and then as a result you end up gaining weight. And there's a lot of I'm having trouble finding my words, because this is a subject it's hard to talk about, and it's I've had my own issues with body image and self-esteem and things of that nature, and for the most part I feel like I'm in a pretty healthy place mentally when it comes to my own body. But there are definitely times that I look at myself and I'm like, God damn, what the hell? And think, you really should lose some weight, and you really should do this, and you really should do that. And I'm just like, but I'm trying my best just to get through this day and get through this life. Yeah.
And while everybody does go through, bouts of self-doubt like that, again, for women, it is, it's much, much, much worse.
It is worse. And there's a lot of fat phobia around. There's a lot of shame involved with being overweight in this country. And it's not something I wish on anybody. And it's a terrible thing. And I feel like we should be focusing more on just being nice to each other and not judging each other.
What we should focus on, and what I think your point is about, the diets that make sudden appearances this time of year is, we should be promoting health.
Yeah, and if going on a diet will make you feel better, I mean, go ahead. But at the same time, I think it's better to be in a better headspace where you're just loving yourself the way you are, rather than trying to change things. Especially this time of year, this is a bad time of year to make changes in your life, because we're in the depths of winter. It's cold outside. It's dark a lot. It's not conducive, particularly to wanting to get out and do things and be happy. It's the time of year where traditionally, before we were an industrialized society, where people just kind of cocooned and bundled up and stayed inside and tried to work on indoor projects and just survive.
Like that episode of Little House on the Prairie where they had so much snow that it went up to the second story window of their house.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah, it's the time of year where I think we should be more focused on just kind of getting through. And then make the big change in spring when you want to be outside walking and doing and active. And then you can carry that through all the way to the summer and to the fall, rather than giving up in February when all the chocolate appears on the shelves for Valentine's Day.
And one thing you got to remember too is that a lot of this too is brought about simply due to advertising from gyms.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I have just noticed it, just the huge change. I've been following Amazon deals for Christmas shopping and stuff, and just looking at just fun little things, blah blah blah. Come December 26th, it all changed to exercise wear and workout equipment and all. I'm just like, but I don't want to buy any of this. Where's all the cute earrings and stuff, and I
buy chocolate and caps
and the sweaters and the fun stuff is all gone. So yeah, it's part of it's advertising driven too. So just basically for the new year, focus on just being comfortable in your skin and not necessarily thinning down. Just focus on getting through the winter, getting through the post-holiday kind of droop. I know I always have kind of a droop in my mood this time of year. Just focus on that, and then start thinking about maybe if you want to get out and exercise more, let's do it in March when the sun starts to come out.
And also, too, what I would say is that if you do have people in your life that are well-meaning but toxic with their messages of, oh, you should go to a gym, it's fun, and blah, 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 kick those people out of your life, or just keep them at a distance or something like that. Don't let them distract you, because, again, you have to worry about your own well-being. You can't judge yourself based on what other people judge you at, because you will never ever attain their overall pleasure. There's nothing wrong with setting healthy boundaries either. I mean,
I have some family members that have converted to veganism over the last couple of years. I've had a couple of them kind of try to evangelize to me, and I've had to shut them down. Just like, I know you mean well, but I'm not going to a plant-based diet, and there's a couple of reasons for it. Mainly that I'm very sensitive to soy. I can't eat the meat substitutes, and I fear that if I switched over to veganism, that I wouldn't be getting enough protein. And I like cheese. I don't want to be a vegan. I like cheese, and I'm not going to convert to the fake cheeses. I like cheese. I am okay with the way I'm eating. I understand you mean well, but please don't try to convert me. You set that boundary, and once you set the boundary, most people respect the boundary.
I would just be scared that I would turn into a douchebag.
Honey, you don't need to worry because you already are a douchebag.
Well, we know this. That's why people tune in every week.
Yes.
What's that douchebag going to say next?
Yeah, exactly. What's that douchebag going to say next? And that lovely Kim, she's so great.
Yeah. Has a lot of patience.
I do have a lot of patience. It's true.
That you do. Anyway.
And he pets me on the head.
Yeah, good girl. Well... We got a new year, but we got the same old nonsense happening in the news.
Oh, what nonsense this time, Tim?
Well, the media loves to find celebrities that have not been in the public conscience for many, many years and loves to ask them political opinions.
Oh, they like to poke the bear.
Yeah, we had a couple of folks in the news recently. One was a gentleman by the name of Loaf.
Like anyone wants to take someone who calls himself Meatloaf seriously.
Yeah, and he came out and said that the 16-year-old activist, a girl Greta Thunberg,
I've heard it pronounced two ways, Thunberg and Thunberg. I don't know which one's correct.
Something foreign. Anyway, he claimed that she was being brainwashed and that climate change is a hoax because if there's a noted scientific mind in this world, it's Meatloaf.
Yeah. I've read about him in the scientific journals. No, I haven't seen any published works by Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Where he's like gone and done research about climate change.
He's not fucking Brian May. I mean, Brian May went and got a PhD in astronomy and has published papers, and he is a smart man. Brian May is a smart man. Meatloaf is Meatloaf.
And if you don't know who Brian May is, he is
the guitarist for Queen.
Yes. Yeah, Meatloaf is Meatloaf. I mean, he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show, for God's sake.
Opportunity, bless my soul.
Oh,
I really love that
rock and roll. Yes.
Now I'm singing. And also another person, Terry Gilliam, one of the famed members of Monty Python. Yeah, he came out and basically made a comment about being upset that white men are being blamed for all the problems in the world.
Well, that's because white men are the ones who have caused many of the problems in the world. And once you accept that fact, you'll feel better.
True. The problem I have is not even necessarily with what both of them said, because at the end of the day, they have every right to spout their opinions as I do. And I have every right to retort to what they have to say. But
I'll retort.
I have a problem with the media bringing up comments from figures like these, figures like Ted Nugent, Roseanne, and just people that have been out of the public conscious for so long. They do this to be divisive.
They do this to sell papers and magazines and get traffic at their websites and all that sort of stuff. Anything that generates money is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. And it's just, why do people continuously get sucked in to being upset about comments from someone like Meatloaf? And again,
because
if there are Meatloaf fans out there that hear this and support everything he says, great, good for you. He has every right to say his opinions. But come on, he's come on.
And you
know what I mean.
The thing is, though, is you can be a fan and not necessarily support everything that person says. I mean, case in point, I'm a fan of Morrissey, but I don't support his activist with regards to animal rights. I mean, he's got some good points, but I'm not going to give up eating meat. I'm like, yeah, I understand factory farming is bad, but I'm not going to completely change my diet. I'm sorry, Morrissey. I love you, but
McDonald's is better.
No, just like I love my vegan family, but I'm not going to change over to eating vegan. I tend towards, I do eat a lot of vegetarian related foods though too. So yeah. I mean,
it basically has me where, I mean, there's a book I'm reading right now from Matt Taibbi called Hate Incorporated that was released in October. Not quite finished with it yet, but he's doing a deep dive into what is making the media as much of an accessory into the problems we're facing today as anything. And it's stuff like this, and basically, you know, to your point, yeah, they're doing it to get money because it is a business.
All about the money.
But they're also following the playbook of professional wrestling in a way too.
It comes down to pro wrestling every time.
Well, the funny part is, in Matt Taibbi's book, he spends a whole chapter talking about it, and he has quotes from this book called "Controversy Creates Cash," written by Eric Bischoff, who used to run WCW. Was a performer in WWE for a while. Now he has a successful podcast called 83 Weeks. And, you know, a lot of what he said rang true, not only in how, you know, we got our current president, but in how things are being portrayed in the media today and how they make people upset. Like, you know, doing what they do with Meatloaf and Terry Gilliam with the short sound bites. Maybe they both had something more in depth to say that would make you go, okay, I get what he's saying.
And they're just clipped around it.
Yeah, but it's just like what they're doing is creating a situation to where people that agree with someone like Meatloaf or Terry Gilliam are going to be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to now buy everything that he does, and he's the greatest person in the world. And then people who disagree with them would be like, fuck that. I'm not going to watch a Terry Gilliam movie anymore. I'm not going to listen to Paradise by the Dashboard Lights on repeat anymore. Fuck that. And why? Why? What is so important about the Meatloaf commenting on Greta Thunberg that we needed to hear it? There's nothing. Again, he's entitled to his opinion. Plus, I'm not saying he shouldn't say what he feels. But come on.
Plus, it's a distraction from the real problems that are happening in the world, like wildfires in Australia. That's a huge problem right now.
Australia's about to burn down. You got a targeted assassination of Iran's number 2 person in power that our dimwit president didn't even go to Congress to talk about, which legally he has to.
Plus, he's currently running the country from Florida at the moment. He hasn't even come back from his vacation, and he's doing this shit. He's talking probably about national security protocols and things of that nature in an unsecure facility.
With bed bugs. Dick. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's... basically, people need to... I wish people overall around the world would take a step back. Media is important. The news is important. It's important to hear what is going on in the world, but we need to hold the news media more accountable for how they deliver that news. Yes, it is a business. Yes, they need to make money, but when they are more of a part of the problem than ever before with stuff like this, articles and news stories that are just merely meant to get people pissed off and nothing more, we can't support that. You know, and that means, you know, not... I see a lot of people, like on Twitter, for instance, when they talked about the Meatloaf thing, they would talk about it, but they would also retweet the link with the article that it was in, which you know,
that's just driving traffic to the site, which is making them money.
Yeah, I mean,
and I understand wanting to quote your sources though too. I'm sure some of it is their instinct to quote their source.
Still, though, in a situation like this, I think this is something that people should, like, if Ted Nugent comes out and says something stupid again,
you should say when Ted Nugent.
He hasn't in a while, but
well, maybe he's like finally like listening to people who are advising him, probably like, maybe you should just not do that, honey.
or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But people just need to take a deep breath, and they need to, one, realize that stories like this have no purpose other than to make you mad. It supports tribalism. Tribalism, what I mean by that is that people that have progressive ideas are a part of a tribe. People that have conservative ideas are part of a tribe. And this back and forth, us versus them mentality, it needs to stop. Because more often than not, on most issues, most people can find a way to compromise.
And a lot of people are usually kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
We're the silent majority, us in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
Mostly because we're just tired of the crap on both ends.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why we got Donald Trump in the first place.
That is because people were like, "Well, I like him because he speaks his mind."
Yeah, hopefully, people don't die due to a nuclear attack, thanks to people throwing away a vote like that. But
those of us on the west coast of this great nation of ours have that to worry about the most. Because if they're going to launch nukes, they're going to hit Hawaii first and then us. And yeah.
Yeah, it's the end of the world.
We know it, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel fine.
Well, at least weed is legal here,
That's true.
We can just, it can be like a modern stoner version of the end of Doctor Strangelove, We could just kick back, fire up a bong, and just watch as the nuclear missiles come in. We'd hold hands, and it'd be like the Cheech and Chong version of the end of Rogue One.
Okay. The Cheech and Chong version of the end of Rogue One.
All right, so you've been watching a TV show?
I've been watching a Netflix show called The Witcher. And a lot of people have been watching The Witcher. There's been a lot of chatter. A lot of chatter in my my various feeds. And I was kind of reluctant to watch The Witcher because I tried playing The Witcher video games and I wasn't a big fan because you can only play as a main character, which is Geralt, the main guy, played by Henry Cavill.
But then you saw Henry Cavill with his shirt off, and you just had to watch the show.
Well, I've seen him with his shirt off before. It wasn't him that got me to watch the show. It was spending some time with my cousins on Christmas. My cousin Chelsea and her husband Turner. Hello to both of them if they happen to be listening, which I think they will. They were talking about listening to the podcast.
Hi.
They were asking me about the podcast. So they were mentioning that they were enjoying it. And when I expressed that I didn't really like the video game that much, because I don't like playing as male characters, just because it's my weird thing. And they were like, well, this is really, I think you'll really like it. And I know, and it's based a lot on the books too. And I had known about the books, and I hadn't got around to reading any of the books. But then I did. And I was like, I read some of the book. I'm like, this isn't bad. And I like, all right, well, if Chelsea likes it, and I trust Chelsea's opinion, and if Turner likes it, and I like Turner's, I generally agree with both of them when it comes to things, I'll watch it. And I like it. I like it a lot. If you like Game of Thrones, you'll probably like The Witcher. But it's gritty, and it's dark, and there's lots of fucking, and there's fighting, and cussing, and...
Are there boobs?
There are boobs.
Yeah!
Tim's all about the boobs. Yeah. God, don't start with that again. You're so gross.
Okay.
But yes, The Witcher. Now, Henry Cavill is attractive, and I know that Henry Cavill can actually act because I saw him in The Tudors, which was an HBO series or Showtime. I don't remember which, but I know he can act, and I thought he was okay as Superman. I mean, he's good looking, and he's got that going for him. But, I think they probably could have got just about anyone to play Geralt, because I don't really think that they necessarily... Because Henry Cavill's good and everything, but he doesn't... He grunts a lot. A lot of his dialogue is these sort of non-committal grunts, but he can say a lot with a grunt. Kind of like... No, it's not like Scooby-Doo. It's more like... It's more like someone will say something and he'll just be like... You can tell he wants to say something, but he'll just be like, He'll just not like that, but... not like that. But more like a... Or... Anyway, if you watch The Witcher, you'll know what I mean when I say he grunts a lot, but... Overall, I like it. I like the way that they did, like, the way that the sorcery works, and I like the character of Yennefer, and I like that there's a lot of strong female characters in this show too, which is a positive in my opinion. That makes the show so much better.
Yeah, we definitely need more of that, and
for sure.
And not the Mila Jovovich type of strong. And I have no problem with her as an actress in the movies she's played before, but the roles she generally takes are kind of two-dimensional at best.
Yeah.
But we need more representation of women in genre films, period.
Yeah, and Yennefer in particular is a very, very well-developed character. I find her character very interesting. And overall, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the show, and I do recommend it. Just be aware that there is a lot of... It can be pretty dark, so if you like your dark swords and sorcery kind of stuff, you'll probably like this. If you liked Game of Thrones, you'll probably like this.
Okay. And there are boobs.
All
right.
And a lot of... Henry Cavill spends a lot of time sitting in baths, too. Not a lot of time, but some time, and that's always nice to look at.
He had to wash the Snyder Cut dirtiness off of him,
Damp Henry Cavill, you can't really go wrong.
I wouldn't know. I like Superman, but not that much.
Oh, come on, damn.
If he came into the room, no.
If he was standing here right now, all damp and ready, would you prefer him looking like Superman or looking like The Witcher?
Superman. But I still wouldn't have sex with him.
Well, I would, but in either form, I don't care. But I kind of like the weird things they were doing with the CGI with his eyes in The Witcher. It's like when his magic is coming out, sort of, and he's getting kind of agitated, his eyes kind of glow a little bit. It's really kind of
an analogy for puberty. Ooh.
No.
I don't know.
God. Why do you always gotta mock my shit?
I'm not mocking anything.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Anyway, what were you going to talk about next?
Well, I wanted to talk about a movie that we saw a couple weeks back. This little independent film called The Rise of Skywalker.
This little independent film that made how many billions of dollars worldwide?
Yeah. The Rise of Skywalker Episode 9 is out and in theaters right now. And I'm not sure if I really liked it.
I enjoyed it for what it was. There was lightsaber duels and there were ships, and
well, I'll put it this way: the worst Star Wars film ever made is Attack of the Clones. I mean, I think generally the consensus, most people agree that is the worst one.
I think Phantom Menace is worse than that.
Phantom Menace still has its moments, though. I mean, because the saving grace of the Phantom Menace is the duel of the fates and the battle between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul.
I don't know. I didn't mind Attack of the Clones as much as I minded Phantom Menace.
I didn't like Attack of the Clones simply because of that horrible, horrible love story.
That's true. Attack of the Clones did have that love story. Okay, that was pretty bad.
Sand, it gets everywhere. I just killed a family. Want to get married? Yes. Oh my God, I see the good
All right. Anyway, let's talk about the...
That's my Natalie Portman impression, by the way.
Yeah, let's talk about what we just saw, not the past. Let's let the past be in the past.
Yeah, let's let it die a quick death. Rise of Skywalker... It had its enjoyable moments, but, my big thing is that the film felt rushed. I mean, especially the very beginning of the film, it just felt like we got dropped in halfway through. You didn't understand half of what was going on. And then Emperor Palpatine just suddenly is back, which...
Oh, by the way, spoilers.
People know the concept here. But that was already told in the commercials anyway, so whatever.
Really, I've had a tendency lately to just stay away from trailers and stuff. Yeah. Just because I don't want to be...
No, he was even on one of the posters as well, so people knew that.
Well, I kind of knew... I saw him on the poster, but I was just like, oh, they're... Because, they're talking about the dark side, so of course they're going to talk about the Emperor. I didn't think he was actually going to be an actual character. I figured he died, like, at the end of Return of the Jedi. He was dead.
And there was no hint whatsoever. I mean, the fact that Palpatine appeared proved that the folks at Lucasfilm had no overall story arc for Episode 7, 8, and 9. They were just making it up as they went along.
Yeah, and it would have, if there had been maybe just a little bit of exposition as to how he was still alive, like maybe if there was like a little sort of flashback clip, like maybe someone rescued his brain from the shaft or something and stuck him in a cryo freeze or a tank or something.
They actually, to me, I think what they are hoping the audience picked up on is one line that Palpatine said of, "I've been dead before." And that along with there's a vat that was on the planet that Palpatine was on that had multiple Snokes in it.
Yeah, so obviously there was some cloning going on, but who and why and when and where? And there's all these questions I have.
Yeah. Who, what, when, where, and why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know, totally. It's
there's that.
That bugged me. That did bug me.
It bugged me. I say this: I love Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor.
Oh yeah, it's not that we don't like the actor or the character.
I mean, I could watch him.
Didn't make any sense.
I could watch him as the Emperor order from Domino's and be entertained. I would like a pepperoni pizza. He would be great. He's great in what he does, but there has to be a reason. There should have been some sort of a hint that there was a big puppet master that was controlling not only Snoke but Kylo Ren. There was not. This was thrown in because Disney was afraid of people's reactions after The Last Jedi and wanted to put an element in that they knew would get people happy without people thinking too much about it.
But now, because of that comment you made, I'm really wondering what kind of pizza Emperor Palpatine would like. I don't think he would be pepperoni. Pepperoni's too pedestrian. He's an emperor. He'd want something fancy, like with artichoke hearts or something.
Well, that or...
like white sauce.
No, he's a bad guy. He'd eat vegan. It'd be a complete vegan pizza.
No, I think he'd want some kind of rare meat that was like sourced in a very cruel way, like veal or something.
No,
some kind of rare veal.
Oh no, it would be Gungan hearts.
Oh, oh, I could see him doing that. Gungan hearts. It should be like the heart pizza with artichoke hearts and Gungan hearts and.
Yeah, new from Jar Jars.
Kalamata olives, because those are gross.
Or the calamari, like
or calamari olives. Well, like no, they'll be like balls of the calamari people.
But you gotta remember, Admiral Akbar. Admiral Akbar is one of the calamari.
Yeah,
it's a trap.
Yeah, I know.
And there's that, but I don't know. There's just so much that was alluded to, hinted at, that wasn't really. Talked about. Like, there's a couple things too that you find out in other material that was not included in the film. Like, there's an Episode 9 sketchbook that's out for sale right now, and they talk about the planet that the Emperor is on. What they don't tell people is the name of that planet.
What is the name of the planet?
Mustafar.
Isn't that the name of like the Lion King's?
No. Mustafar is the planet where Obi-Wan and Anakin had their lightsaber duel, and where Anakin fell into the lava. And in Rogue One, when Vader had his castle, that castle was on Mustafar.
Okay. So there's some kind of cloning facility there, basically.
There is. That, and there was an element near the end of the film. Now, at the end of the film, we talked about this in the car after we saw it. I talked about how, Lando Calrissian is in the film, by the way. And there's a character you meet that ends up becoming friends with Finn, a young woman. And Lando, at the end of the film, gives her a look and then promises to help her go out and look for her family.
Find her family, yeah.
And initially when I saw it, I thought, God damn, Billy D's a pimp. But I did not know that there was a secret backstory that was taken out of that film. It was hinted at by other characters, but you have no reason to associate it with Lando as well. They talked about it was that woman in question and Finn when they were helping fix the Millennium Falcon, I believe. They talked about how the Empire, how the First Order would steal children away and raise them. It was a deleted scene apparently, but it was explained by Lando that his daughter was kidnapped.
Oh.
So that woman, he thinks, is his daughter. That's why he looked at her the way he did.
Well, you know, they've got all that tech there. Can't they just run a DNA test?
They could, but, you know, they couldn't make another potential film out of it. I don't know. I mean,
well, they could make another potential film out of it.
I just don't think Billy D. Williams at his age is going to be up for making a film like that. Just because if you noticed in this, because I believe he does have some medical issues, and if you noticed in The Rise of Skywalker, he's not doing much walking around.
That's true.
So I think more than anything, they're going to leave that story for a book, a video game, or the comics, or maybe there'll be a cartoon about it or something like that.
Maybe Disney Plus will do a series like The Mandalorian about it.
Or something. I mean, because overall, this film has me concerned about the future of Star Wars. And I think ultimately, and we talked about this as well, too, I think what Star Wars needs to do is break away from the Skywalker storyline.
Well, I think, now it's kind of wrapped up and finished and tied up with sort of a bow. It's kind of like a crudely wrapped Christmas present, really.
Yeah, I mean, but and when I say that, I don't want to give the impression that if an episode 10 came out and Luke Skywalker was a supporting character as a Force Ghost talking to somebody about a completely different story, new story that had nothing to do with the original films, I would not have a problem with that in the least bit. But every single Star Wars film has been related to, in some way or form, to the original trilogy. Whether it's a prequel story, whether it's a sequel story, it's all about essentially homaging those first 3 films that came out. And in order for Star Wars to survive, I think they are going to have to take note on what they did with The Mandalorian. Because if they do what Marvel did with setting up the MCU, I mean, Marvel could have easily just had Iron Man movies and had, other characters just guest star in Iron Man movies and gone from there. After time, interest would have died down. The beauty of what Marvel did is they opened up the universe and had it to where you could have a story with Iron Man, and then the next film is Captain America. Then you have Ant-Man doing their own adventure with nobody else around, with a story that doesn't really have any sort of connection with anything else. But you may have 1 or 2 little elements tossed in that if you do have something you're trying to go towards, like an Avengers Endgame type of event, people can look back on and go, oh, I get it. But they're going to have to do more stories like what they're doing with The Mandalorian, because The Mandalorian is really damn good.
Did you watch the rest of The Mandalorian?
I have not.
Oh, you really should. I've watched all of the episodes now. It's really fucking good.
Yeah.
It's worth Disney Plus. Oh my god. If anything, subscribe to Disney Plus. Use like the free month or whatever it is to watch The Mandalorian, and then you can unsubscribe and be pleased.
But for $6.99 a month, I mean, you're gonna enjoy it no matter what. The Disney Plus, no matter what. I mean, we've been preaching that service on this show since they first announced it. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, and
yeah.
The Mandalorian alone is really worth the price of admission. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Ultimately, Rise of Skywalker, I think there's enough. It's a J.J. Abrams movie. He knows how to make. He studied Steven Spielberg growing up, and I think he's learned a lot from Spielberg's work with some of his lesser materials, like hooks and whatnot, and in terms of being able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. That's an old phrase in wrestling.
I haven't heard that phrase before. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's not going to be anybody's favorite Star Wars movie, but there will be some enjoyable elements. There's just a lot of problems, and I hope that when they make another Star Wars movie in the future, they learn a lot of the mistakes they made. ever since Disney took over, because while Disney has had a lot of success with Star Wars, and rightfully so, because they have made some great choices, continuing on, and another thing that bothered me too, one thing I forgot to bring up was, once again, they had to go to the well of a woman character falling for a guy that she feels is good at heart, and she can bring the good out in him.
Ugh.
And overdone and dangerous.
Yep.
It is frankly dangerous. That's not to say that there aren't examples in the world of, women getting with a guy, and then that guy being so awed by her love that he changes his life around and becomes good. Yes, there are examples out there, but that's the exception, not the rule. It should not be encouraged. Women, especially young girls that see someone like Rey as a hero, should not be encouraged to fall for a guy that is bad.
Well, just in general, you shouldn't get involved with men who want to hurt you.
No.
You shouldn't. You just shouldn't. It's not worth the effort, and they're generally not going to change. If they change, it's going to be like a very, very slight chance, and it's not worth it.
It's definitely
not worth it.
Not worth it.
Anyhow,
we are coming to our album of the week.
And this was Tim's choice.
Dun, 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 dun. It's a Tim-centric show today.
Yeah. Well.
Sorry.
You're not sorry.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. This week I chose a classic. I've been a Beatles fan for as long as I can remember. I mean, as a kid, you're of course aware of the Beatles. My mother was a huge Beatles fan. In the 80s, there were a couple times to where there was Beatles songs in commercials, and then you had John Lennon songs in commercials as well. My mother would gush about John Lennon like she, was his secret girlfriend or something.
Yeah,
like
my mom was a Paul McCartney fan personally.
Oh, my mother, up to the day she died, if Paul McCartney came in and said, "Oh, hello, let's spend 20 minutes together," she would have ate him alive.
God.
But my sister's like vomiting right now. But really, my interest in the Beatles started when I was 16. I ran away from home.
Really?
Yeah. Granted, running away from home for me was running from my mom's house to my dad's house.
That doesn't sound like a good choice.
It was not a good choice at all. But, because he had no sense of structure. I was a sophomore in high school, and just, with no sense of structure in high school, I was skipping school a lot. And one day, the benefit of being, 6'5" when you're a sophomore in high school is that when you do skip school, people are much less likely to think you're skipping school.
Yeah, they just assume that you're out of school and done with school.
In college. I mean, that was the time that I saw my first rated R movie. It was Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh.
Yeah, I wish it would have been something different.
That movie has issues.
Yeah, I mean, Keanu, his acting at the time, he was trying to be a serious actor.
Oh yeah, his acting in that is terrible, but the rest of the cast is not bad.
Even Winona Ryder had her moments. But one thing I did too was, I visited a lot of pawn shops in town, and would just check out, some of the stuff they had there. And there was this one pawn shop I was looking through that they had some cheap cassettes, cassettes for $1. And one that they had was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Uh-huh.
Never heard it before. I knew it was a Beatles album, so I bought it and just fell in love and just had to... I'm the type of person that once I become fascinated with something, I have to know everything about it. So I ended up getting like all of the Beatles albums from the library and copying them onto cassette. Because they actually had the LPs, and and the LP version of Beatles songs are much, much better than the digital versions you're going to get on a streaming service or CD, because there's with an LP, there's a lot of deep bass richness that you don't get with CD. But one album that I discovered from the Beatles, I think is their absolute best. It was their last recorded album, but the second to last album that they ever released.
Okay.
And that is Abbey Road.
All right.
What did you think of Abbey Road when you listened to it?
Overall, it's not my favorite Beatles album.
Okay, why is it?
I think that they were being... Well, this is what I casually refer to the Beatles. I think of their music as a couple of different periods. This is part of their druggy period. Very heavily drug influenced. And I don't really like the Beatles in that form very much. I prefer them more with their early form. My favorite album is A Hard Day's Night. So I prefer the more boy band, pop band kind of sound that they had.
Yeah.
I kind of prefer that sound. That's my preference when it comes to the Beatles. Overall, I felt that the album was kind of self-indulgent and pretentious.
Okay.
Because I honestly hadn't listened to all of Abbey Road in one sitting before. I had just heard like the hits from it, Come Together and Something and Here Comes the Sun. Those are like the big hits from this album. And the rest is, I guess I expected more. I expected to like it more than I did, and I'm just kind of...
For me...
I honestly... I don't think that this album would have been released in its form if they hadn't been the Beatles. And they would have been like, yeah, I bet whoever was producing this was like, yeah, this isn't their best, but it's going to make money. Let's put it out.
Well, this was at a time where they were at their most fractured.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Yeah, because if you think about the pressures they had to go through, the entire world wanted to know everything about them. They couldn't go out into public. They had to essentially be with each other at all times of the day for years.
But they manufacture that themselves.
True, but that's going to wear on anybody. And, they were near the end of their rope. The first half of the album was essentially primarily John's side of the album, which is why the first side going up to the song I Want You, She's So Heavy is just, track in a normal album. And then side 2 is where you have the McCartney influence of having the melody and having the various songs kind of stitched together.
Yeah, and I had read too that basically like the second half of the album was just basically like one long track pretty much with little songs stitched together, kind of pulling from where we had what we had talked about previously about like the Beastie Boys when they had that B-Boy Bouillabaisse. I'm pretty sure that was the B-Boy Bouillabaisse was probably influenced by this part of Abbey Road.
Yeah,
especially considering too they pulled a bass groove right straight out of one of these songs.
Yeah,
straight out of the end.
Yeah, that was in Sounds of Science. Again, one of my favorite Beatles albums, so I thought we'd go through track by track and see what we thought. Now, the first track on the album, Come Together. What'd you think?
Honestly, I had a hard time enjoying the hits just because I've heard them so many times. It's not a bad song, but I was just kind of like, oh god, I have to listen to the song again kind of feeling just because I've heard it so many times. It's not a bad song. It's a pretty good song, but I've just heard it so many times.
For me, I'm going to say that this is not my favorite Lennon song. This was a period in time where he was discovering that he could essentially put anything on paper and people would still think it's the most fascinating thing in the world. Yeah,
because they were just, people were obsessed with the Beatles and people were just like, oh, if he's doing this, it must be good, even if it's not necessarily good. The lyrics don't make much sense.
Yeah, and he even, the first couple lines of the song, he ripped off from a Chuck Berry song, which resulted in him being sued. And in the 70s, as recompense, he had to sing an album of old 50s rock songs to pay for stealing the line for Come Together here. But Come Together was originally apparently written as a campaign song for Timothy Leary, who was running for governor in California.
Right. That's right. I did read about that. Yeah. Oh,
and
Timothy Leary, the father of LSD.
Yeah.
Let's have the Beatles, who are experiencing and experimenting heavily with drugs, write a song. Yeah, it's going to sound like a freaking lovin'.
Well, again, to me, I can just hear Lennon this is just something he pulled out of his ass.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
And...
He smoked a bowl, pulled it out of his ass, said, hey, this is awesome.
And then he just knew that people would consider him the deepest in the world, yet he didn't know what the hell the song meant because there was no meaning to it. And I've heard other artists kind of do the same thing. I know, like Ozzy, for instance. He's not a traditional songwriter in the sense that he puts pen to paper and writes a song, but apparently his process in the songwriting thing is that when his band, whether it was Black Sabbath or his solo band, would come to the studio with a song, he would just essentially improvise the lyrics off the top of his head, and then other members of the band would take some of those lyrics that they like and then shape it into a song that way. I know Paul Simon has done something similar. David Bowie did something similar near the end of his life. But again, this just felt lazy. I did not particularly like this song.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of like there's just a lot of random stuff strung together, and all of a sudden it's like then the chorus hits "come together." I guess in a way maybe he's saying like all the world is full of random bits. We should all come together right now. Over him. Yeah. Okay, Lord Lennon, whatever you say.
Dominus. All right, the next song, Something. What'd you think?
I've heard it too many times. I honestly, I mean, I worked in freaking soft rock radio for like a year. Oh. So and granted it was only like 1 or 2 days a week, but at the same time, I've heard all of these songs, the hit songs, many times, and it's just, I don't know, honestly, something about it seems like almost creepy, this song.
Funny you say that, because the subject of the song was his wife at the time. Patty, her pre-marriage name was Patty Boyd. Mm-hmm. She ended up marrying George Harrison. He wrote this song for her, plus another song on the album. The only songs that he sang on the album, this and Here Comes the Sun, were written about her. In the 70s, they had a breakup because of Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton declared his love for her and wrote a little song called Layla in honor of her.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting married, but thanks to alcohol and spousal abuse, they broke up as well. So,
thanks, alcohol.
Yeah, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I know Frank Sinatra, for instance, he came out and said that he thought that this was one of the most beautiful love songs ever written, which, coming from him, I'm sure they felt was an honor. I know that
says the man who was married how many times? Frank Sinatra was married 5 times?
I believe that's right.
Yeah, he knows about love. He knows about obsession. He knows about...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
didn't Frank Sinatra knock around a couple of his wives, too? Probably.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't recall ever hearing anything like that, and I don't think that if it did occur, it was anything that was OJ level. But to be clear, I want to make it very clear, even if it was just one slap, one time, that was still evil, that was still wrong. He should not have done that. Yes. I want to make that very clear. But still, to your point with this song, it's a good song, but something, getting back to the Beatles and not spousal abuse, it's just, again, to your point, kind of overplayed. So this is one that I will generally tend to skip when I do listen to this album.
I mean, it's a pretty song.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad song. It's just, I've heard it so many friggin' times. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
So.
All right. The next one is a lovely little Paul McCartney number about a serial killer, Maxwell Silverhammer.
Oh, is that what it's about?
Yeah.
I was just listening to it going, I don't even know what this is really about, but I thought that adding in the weird clanging noises was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of, especially after the the slow, and then all of a sudden it's like dun 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 clink clink bump bump. I'm just like, I don't know. I thought I was at the circus for a minute, listening to it.
Yeah, McCartney is a weird songwriter in a lot of ways. I mean, he works best when he does have someone that can kind of temper his, showman, like David Lee Roth urges.
David Lee Roth. Now I'm picturing McCartney in spandex.
Just a gigolo, and everywhere I go.
Clank, clank.
Clang, clang, clang goes a trolley. No. But, McCartney was always more of a traditional. I mean, he's loved, the old-timey songs, still loves the old-timey songs, and this is knee-deep in that. Another throwaway bit for me. Not as big of a fan. Overall, when it comes to the Beatles, I do tend to steer more towards either the Harrison or the Lennon songs overall. So, not a huge surprise that I did not care for this particular one. But this is not bad. Maxwell Silverhammer is not a bad song. It's just not. It's forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, I just was kind of like, this sounds more like.
I think this is my favorite album, and the first 3 songs, I just hear it too much.
I just feel like maybe it would have been better on Sgt. Pepper's. It had kind of a Sgt. Pepper feel to it, this song.
A little darker with the lyrics, but it could have fit.
It's just the happy. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, the next song, Oh Darling.
Tedious, and it did not belong on this album. It just doesn't fit. It just does. It sounds like it should be on a completely different album.
Well, this one apparently was a pet project of McCartney's. Apparently, he in his head heard what the song was going to sound like. And what he would do, apparently, is like every day at the same time he would go into the studio and start singing the song. But if he did not feel he was getting it, he ended it and then he left. And then just kept on doing it until, this song was done in one take. This was after many attempts at getting this song right, and he ended up getting the version that he wanted to put out, and which I guess was influenced by early 60s R&B type of songs.
You can hear that in the song. You can hear the R&B and the kind of almost doo-wop kind of sound to it, but it doesn't go with the rest of the album. The rest of the album is part of their drug period. This sounds like it should have been with more with their early work.
Well, when you talk about their drug period, I mean, yes, they did experiment with some heavy drugs, but it wasn't as much as they weren't going at Keith Richards levels. They weren't. Well, going no, at Ozzy I know. I
basically, what I mean is the more psychedelic sound.
Yeah.
Rather than the do 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 kind of sound. The the Hard Day's Night sound.
Yeah, just traditional rock. I
guess. Traditional rock. This sounds more like it would have been perfect at a slow dance in the 50s or something, rather than with this album.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a bad song, but McCartney has done better versions of it with other songs earlier in his career.
Yeah, I just
if you want something similar in vein, but it's a little more slow tempo, I'd recommend going to Revolver. There's Here, There, and Everywhere.
Yeah, really that's a good song.
Multi-track song that he did. But this good, but I would also put it in the forgettable column.
Yeah.
Now the next song, I dig it. Octopus's Garden.
I like this song too. Actually, what I like about this song, they did it in a Beatles rock band, and the graphics and the stuff they did for this was really fun. That's what it made. It reminded me of playing this in Beatles Rock Band, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, of the Rock Band series.
I bought that one and just got it for the vocal version. I wasn't going to play the instruments or anything like that, but I got that and then ended up buying because like anything they had downloadable extras, and I bought the last part of this particular album to sing, and at that time I had some birds, and every time I would sing it, the birds would stop chirping. So
but But yeah, I like Octopus's Garden. That's one of the songs on here I really do enjoy.
Yeah, it's a fun, goofy song. I mean, you know, listening to it, Ringo wrote that, one of his early songs that he actually wrote. And, you know, he sang before on their albums, but generally Lennon or McCartney would write the song for him. But this is one of his first efforts as a songwriter. You know, he was never ever going to be the breakout star of the group. You know, I think it's clear that, you know, apart from Lennon and McCartney, the other real the real heavyweight in terms of songwriting was George Harrison.
Yeah.
But you know, Ringo, for what it is, Octopus's Garden is fun and it's great. I think it's great too as kind of an introductory type song for kids to, you know, kind of get them introduced to music like this.
Yeah, this one and Yellow Submarine are good for kids because they're easy to sing along with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of one that's not easy to sing along with, it's the next track. I Want You, She's So Heavy.
Ugh. I don't like this song.
That's a John Lennon love song to Yoko Ono.
I don't like it. I didn't like the lyrics. I didn't like the song. I honestly, when it comes to the Beatles, most of their songs, I'm just like, yeah, it's all right. And I don't know, there was something about this song that just set me off. I listened to it all the way through a couple of times, and then when I was doing a final listen through just before we recorded, I just started and I'm like, I can't listen to this, and I had to skip it. And I don't do that very often when I'm re-listening to stuff for the show. It's pretty rare that I'll skip stuff. But I skipped that one, and I skipped Oh Darlin' as well as soon as that one started. I was like, nope, don't want to listen to it again.
Well, what is not really talked about these days because of how he, you know, tragically was murdered, was that during this time, Lennon was not the nicest guy when it came to his interactions with women.
No, he wasn't.
Before Yoko Ono, he openly admits to physically abusing many women.
Yep.
Even with Yoko, I mean, people wanted to assume that Yoko was the one behind the stuff like the bed-in type deal, and the fact that they did not leave each other's side for anything for, I believe, 5 years. Yet really that was John really doing that, and you know, thankfully Yoko, you know, had enough of it and said, you know, if we're going to continue, we need some time apart. He went to LA and had what he called his lost weekend, where he acted like a drunken fool for a while, and then ultimately came to his senses and then realized, you know, what his actions were doing, not only to the woman he loved, Yoko, but what they've done to other women in the past. And, you know, thankfully he was able to be the rare, you know, exception to the rule and become empathetic to women and their causes and, you know, what men can do for them. But during this time, you hear this song, like I said, he wrote it as a love song to Yoko Ono, but this is more of an obsessive type song. It kind of reminds me of like Sting's work with the Police. Like every breath you take type of deal, and it's just a scary type of obsession.
Yeah, I think that's just why I didn't like it. It just something about it. It was just like, nah, stop. Bad touch.
All right, not my no spot.
Stop.
No. All right, the next song, another classic, but again, probably our big complaint here is the fact that it is overplayed a lot. Here Comes the Sun.
You know, I like this mainly because I really like the guitar in it. Mm-hmm. That really, and there's a lot of, it's simple but complex at the same time. It's like the lyrics are really simple, but the guitar work, when you listen to how intricate it is, and when you try to play it in Rock Band, it's not easy. It's not easy. But yeah, I still like this song. I still like listening to this song. It is overplayed, but I like it.
I do too. And yeah, I mean, because I've heard it so many times over the years, it's not something I will generally, you know, voluntarily listen to. What I mean by that is I'm not going to put it on like a playlist or anything like that. It's more of, if it happens to be playing, I will listen and enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, again, another classic, and it was no surprise that, you know, like the first Beatle to have a huge monster hit after the breakup was George Harrison.
He's a good songwriter.
He was, because his first album, All Things Must Pass, I believe was a double or triple album, but it was filled with songs that were rejected from the Beatles, and he ended up having, a much... I think Harrison had the much more stable career than Lennon and McCartney have. I mean, McCartney had Wings, of course, and then his solo career in the 80s, which admittedly was more just, hey, it's Paul. He would make an album in the 80s, 90s, up till today, just to go out in concert to continue to play songs from the Beatles and Wings.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He's making a lot of money doing it. On the other hand, I'm sure as an artist, he's probably a little sad that people aren't reacting to the new stuff, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
but
the new stuff isn't that great. It's pretty hit or miss.
It is only because of the legacy and songwriting that he's had. I mean, if when you write A Hard Day's Night, when you write, Sgt. Freaking Pepper, it's hard to top that.
Yeah.
But all right, now the next song starts kind of the montage part of the album.
It is. It's like, what did they split it into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Split it into like 10 tracks for in terms of the album or Spotify or wherever you listen to it. But it is. They're all like little snippets.
Yeah. No, in the past, what the Beatles have done, I mean, when on any Beatles album, for a Lennon and McCartney song, they say songwriter is Lennon McCartney. But they had this unique ability to come up with songs on their own that they could not necessarily finish, but when they brought them together as a band, they were able to make into one coherent song. Like take Sgt. Pepper, the last song on the album, A Day in the Life. It has a little break in the middle where Paul McCartney, woke up, went out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, which is a totally different type of tone than what Lennon had with his lyrics, but it still oddly fit. And that's kind of what's happening here, starting with this, because it is the name of the next song here. Not the best start of the montage, just simply because they thought they were being funny, like they thought they were being funny when they came up with their name of their band, the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's one of the, because the world is round, it turns me on. Just play off of words and you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the vocals are great, how they were able to harmonize together, but the overall, meh.
But yeah, this song is one of the songs that made me think the whole album is extremely self-indulgent and somewhat pretentious. Just because they're like, yeah, let's experiment some with like this and that and the other, and let's do these interesting vocal things, because we're the Beatles and we can, people are gonna buy our garbage, basically. Let's fuck around with our instruments a bit and do some weird vocal stuff, put it on a record, suckers will buy it. Pretty much.
Yeah. All right, the next song, You Never Give Me Your Money.
Ugh. No.
I actually dug this. Again, it's the songs that are in this montage, they're short, so it's hard to really judge them.
It's hard to really judge them as individual songs, but this part of it is just like, ugh.
Yeah. All right, the next one, Sun King.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now there was an album. It was produced. I believe the last album produced by George Martin. It was in conjunction with the Cirque du Soleil show Love, where they took this song and essentially played it backwards.
Huh.
And that was interesting because the Beatles did that a lot with. They discovered it by accident. Lennon did for I think it was the song Rain off of Revolver. He wanted to do that entire song. He wanted to sing it, but then have the song, play the vocals backwards. They didn't do that. They only did like the chorus at the end of the song backwards. But they did, for the Love version of this song is actually pretty interesting. As far as it is on Abbey Road, on its own, meh. As for what it is for the montage, it gets you to the next part, which is Mean Mr. Mustard.
I liked Mean Mr. Mustard, as it kind of reminded me of that kind of the sort of da 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 da. It was almost the circus music kind of thing again.
Mm-hmm.
When they start throwing in horns and stuff and being all upbeat and do 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 kind of. I don't know how to describe it except that I like the song.
Yeah, it was a good, nice up-tempo number that referenced the next song, Polythene Pam.
Yeah, I like that one too. I like those two. Those were pretty good.
Yeah, that was another good McCartney track there. And then the next one after that, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, which was actually written about McCartney's stalker.
Yeah, I just, from this point on, I'm just kind of like, yawn. Pretty much. I know it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But up until from the end of Polythene Pam until we get to that groove in the end, I'm just kind of over it. At this point, I'm like, oh, I'm glad there's only a couple minutes left because I'm kind of done.
Well, the last couple songs on the album are my favorites, not individually, but for what they bring as a whole as part of the montage.
Mm-hmm.
Golden Slumbers, a McCartney track.
When I first read the title, I thought it said Golden Showers. I know, I'm terrible.
Fill Your Eyes, that gives it new meaning.
Yeah, exactly.
McCartney peed in my face. There's a track for our best of. Good song. Again, we'll just name the rest of the songs here. Carry That Weight, The End, and Her Majesty. On their own, they're not... individually, if you took one and just that individual track on its own, not very good. But what it contributes overall for what they did with the montage, especially The End. Being that this was their last recorded album and their last song essentially has their mission statement, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make, mm-hmm. which is their version of the golden rule, I guess. In a lot of ways, to me, that's a beautiful way to end a career.
Yeah.
I could just imagine them. They get done with that song, they put their instruments down, shake hands, go their separate ways, and what a career. Now, like I said, this is one of my favorite Beatles albums, despite, being critical of a lot of these songs here. The big reason why I'm critical is that, again, being a huge Beatles fan growing up, I've heard this album many, 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 many times. So my opinion today is a lot more jaded just simply because I've heard it a lot. But that does not mean that my opinion of the album is any less than it was when I first heard it. I mean, to me, it's a beautiful album.
Yeah, I mean, it has its bright spots, but overall, it's definitely not my favorite Beatles album. Because I like the Beatles, too. I've listened to the majority of their work. Mm-hmm. And it's just not my favorite album as a whole.
Okay. Speaking of albums, what are we going to listen to next week?
Okay, so I debated quite a bit, because part of me wants to challenge you and our audience with some of my favorite work that's not very accessible.
I just want to say I'm sorry for winning that. Yeah.
But I decided, because it's winter and I didn't want to pick one of my depressing albums that I love, I decided to pick something a little out of the box.
Paula Abdul.
No. We're going to listen to Weird Al Yankovic, and the album is In 3D.
I got Spotify here. Oh man.
Yeah, so it's one of his early works. It's one of the it is the first album by Weird Al Yankovic that I ever heard, but it's so goofy and I love it, and I think that his influence on music is not to be discounted.
Okay, that has Eat It.
Yeah, it's one of his good ones. Yeah, get over yourself. You've made me listen to some stuff. So, we're going to listen to Weird Al Yankovic, Eat It. And just think, no, not Eat It, in 3D. Just think how it's going to look for our titles on the
Yeah, Friends Talking Nerdy in 3D.
In 3D.
Dun, dun. Yeah, we need to see me in 3D.
The forehead.
No, stop. With my balding head, it's a 5 head, you know.
I love you, babe.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we made it.
Welcome to 2020, people.
Yeah, but I'm excited for the year. In a couple of months, we got episode 100 coming up. I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I do got... I've already talked to you briefly about it, but I do got some plans for a special guest to appear on that show.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I already told you who it was. Essentially, the special guest is somebody that ended up helping birth this show, so to speak. You know, one of the people that helped with the creation of what we got here, but has never officially been on the show. So,
okay,
it'll be cool to have them on. So, but yeah, next week, Weird Al.
Weird Al. I love Weird Al.
All right. I like him too. I just think with Weird Al, for me, it's like with any joke. You hear it once, great. You laugh, it's funny, it's great, but it's not something... Weird Al's music is not something that I generally can have on repeat.
Well, I'm not asking you to listen to it more than once.
Thank God. Anyway, we will see you next week.
See you next week.
And remember...
It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new. And I'll have more ideas for you. And you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.